ask for blessing on them and their families as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Yeah, so done this twice in the past, and both times started out. So one time I started out with 6 students, and by week 4 we were down to 1, and he went on for 12 weeks total. And then the second time I started out with 4, and everybody was out by week 5.
Wow.
So common dropout rate, and this is actually holds true even in seminary. Just kind of you get overwhelmed pretty easy. So
So I won't be here week 3,
okay.
but that's because I'm out of town.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I'm dropping out.
Okay.
It's not like I can just run away anyways, because
you live here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So my encouragement is don't get discouraged. We'll talk more about how to not get discouraged, but it really isn't as hard as it seems when you're first getting into it. If you can get through 2 months, you can get through to the end.
Okay.
And I like to do things as slightly more like a formal classroom kind of thing to give it structure, and try and take some of that burden off of, I don't know what we're doing today, at least.
Sure.
You can try and prepare and at least be a little bit more productive in that way. So today the outline, it's actually pretty simple today. You should walk away knowing the alphabet. That's the goal. And but we're going to walk through the syllabus and then some general tips and tricks for going forward. Vocabulary will be on most lessons. So vocabulary, when it's in a lesson outline, refers to the words you need to know in order to talk about the language. So there's always fancy language words like participle, pronoun, preposition, lexicon, transliteration, translation. These are all terms that you should at least be kind of familiar with. So there'll almost always be vocabulary each week. That just refers to vocabulary for talking, for learning. And then there's vocab-lists in the book of Greek words that you're going to be learning.
Vocabulist?
Yeah, like a list of words in Greek that you memorize. Right. Think back to 3rd grade, 4th grade English, right? When you're doing vocabulary homework. And then alphabet, and then we'll go over homework. So that's the plan for tonight. And then if there's time, I want to hear, I haven't heard your testimony, kind of background stuff.
Sure.
So, but we'll do this first, and then we'll go to that. Introductory Matters. Bauer-Donker, BDAG is what it's called. Bauer-Donker Art Gingrich. This is the standard Greek dictionary. So you will often hear people say, when they're talking about the definition of a Greek word, BDAG says, da 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 da. That's what they're referring to. It's a big dictionary. I'm going to grab my copy. See it.
That's all on the syllabus.
This is BDAG.
Oh.
Yeah, everything on the slides, or at least most everything on the slides is on the handout. So that's BDAG. Big honking book. You can get older editions for a lot cheaper. That's like a $150 book if you buy it new. The older editions, unfortunately, that edition in particular is best if you're going to buy a print copy because they bolded the words and they changed some formatting things that make it a lot easier to find the word you're looking for. So if you're going to get serious at all about studying Greek, everybody's got a copy of that on their shelf. You can probably find an older edition at half-price books for $30, $40.
How quickly?
I would hold off on buying that. That, like, by the end of, so the syllabus that you have is the first half of the class, and then once we get through 14 chapters, I'll give you, so we're going through everything through nouns, pronouns, adjectives, but we're not touching verbs at all in the first half, and then the second half is basically all verbs, and verbs are the scary part for most people. But yeah, so I would wait until we get through all the nouns before you even think about buying a copy of BDAG to make sure you're serious about it, because it's a little bit of an investment. This is worth having, so this is NA28, Novum Testamentum Gracia. It's the scholarly edition of the Greek New Testament that most textual critics will use. Textual criticism is just looking at various manuscripts and comparing the little variations in the text. So that's the edition that the really high-minded people over in Germany put together that accounts for all of the variations. So you can look, all those notes at the bottom.
So they think this is the most accurate.
Yeah, to as close as we can get to the original
Cool.
manuscripts. That's one of the editions produced by scholars that most people will say that's the most reliable that's currently available. There are some guys working in Arizona who are putting together their own American
What's the
version.
price on that one?
That's cheaper. That's going to be about $25, $30.
And the first one you said about $150 new, but
Yeah, you can find a
at the
used copy
most
for
we're gonna do $150.
cheaper. And then Braun Frank's English Grammar for Language Students. So this is if you don't have any kind of background in learning languages, or just if your English language skills aren't that great. If I mention a participle and you have to think, what is a participle? It's something with ing. That's going to make it harder to learn the Greek. So this book is a really simple, straightforward guide on English grammar and learning kind of the terms of how to talk about language. Really helpful, just kind of to be reviewing. And that one's real cheap. It's a little, it's almost like a pamphlet.
Okay.
So those are the three that you don't have to have, but they're definitely helpful. And this, if you make it through to get to where you can read it, ideally that's what you're taking to church. That's what I have. A Greek New Testament strapped to the back of my Bible that I carry at church. And if we're in the New Testament, that's what I'm using. So, class structure. So each meeting, I'm going to try and hold it really strict to 60 minutes and actually be done at 8 o'clock. 10-minute review quiz. So there will be quizzes. It's purely for your own edification, right? Just kind of keep you honest. Say, I will grade them and give them back to you so you can see how you're measuring up. And now, obviously, if you don't want to take them seriously, you don't have to. But I think it's good to kind of check. And then when you're getting into those harder parts, you can kind of look back for validation at these quizzes where you'll have one that you completely bomb, but 3 weeks later you'll have mastered all that stuff. So you can look back and be like, oh yeah, okay, I remember. It was tough then, and it gets easier. And so it's nice little encouragement as you make your way through to look back on your past quizzes. Each week there'll be 15 minutes of review and going through the homework. So the workbook thing that's interesting. See if that sorts itself out. Interesting.
What are these other two books on the syllabus?
Can you?
The English Greek Reverse Interlinear New Testament ESV?
Oh yeah, so that's similar to what you got there. That book that you brought in, Interlinear. So a reverse interlinear is kind of a dumbed down version of that.
Okay.
A reverse interlinear uses the English as the primary text,
Okay.
and then puts the Greek words underneath.
Okay, cool. And then Learn to Read New Testament Greek.
Learn to Read New Testament Greek is that one's by David Allen Black.
Yep.
So that was the first grammar that I used. So that the Mounce book that you already bought is a grammar. It teaches you the language. The Learn to Read New Testament Greek is just another guy who did his own grammar that teaches you how to read Greek. So it's not a bad idea to have other grammars on hand. So if you don't,
kind of runs congruently with this.
It'll cover all the same material, nowhere near in the same order. But you should be able to
I
find.
just meant I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I used that word incorrectly. Okay.
So you might find that Mounce is explaining something and you're not getting it, but you flip over to Black and he manages to say it in a way that clicks.
Okay.
So I always find that useful. I actually like Black's grammar better, but talking to the broad swath of everybody who's learned Greek and even my friends who went through both programs with me and used both grammars, everybody else said that they liked Mounce better. So I'm just weird. So I stick with Mounce when I'm teaching it, but But yeah, so that's what that is. And there wasn't anything else. The card, the laminated card thing that you already have, that's useful as kind of a summary. Refer back. 20 minutes lesson and then 10 minutes Q&A, and obviously all this can flex as needed. But that's at least the plan. We're going to try and stick to. And the syllabus, the way the syllabus works, so the backside has the first, I think I did 14 chapters, up through 14 chapters, which is like 11, 12 weeks, something like that.
11 weeks.
11 weeks, okay. So the stuff to different people when you're learning this in the master's level, you have the reading and the workbooks exercises that you're supposed to have done before you come in, and nobody ever does. And so you're constantly like, what you're learning in class isn't actually clicking because they expect you to have read it and you haven't, and so it's just a waste of time really, and you're stuck trying to learn it on your own back home. So what I prefer to do is what we talk about in class is what you then go home and read the chapter on and do the homework for. And then the review in the next class kind of solidifies it.
Okay.
And that way there's not like a bunch of people going, I didn't really do the homework, I don't really know what I'm doing. Or at least I have no idea what you're talking about because nobody does. We're all learning new information on the slides in the classroom, and then you go home and reinforce it with reading. You can also be more strategic that way. So if you're reading something like, oh yeah, I remember this from class, no problem. I don't need to review this from the book, then you can skip down and manage your time better. So that's always
what are the chapters like for someone who's completely just hasn't been in a class in years and hasn't tried to learn a foreign language since high school 20 years ago?
I mean,
should I what I was going to say is could I read it before class?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then after,
definitely.
or is that just too much reading?
No, that's
is it a pretty easy read? I haven't even cracked it open yet.
It is easy to read. Like, theoretically, you could be home with that book and that workbook and teach yourself Greek. And you don't really technically need somebody here doing it. I'm just here to answer questions mostly and to keep you accountable. Yeah.
I'm trying to be not like I was in school.
Be actually studious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I learned how to learn after I finished school. So
yeah.
I had to flunk out of A&M to learn how to learn.
This is the first language that I'm formally learning.
All right.
Besides English.
Okay, great.
Well, mine was just a couple Spanish classes that you had to take in the high school is what I mean. You didn't even have to do that?
I took fine arts instead of... Took 4 years of band.
That's amazing. Were you in Texas?
No, I was in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, I wish I had taken Spanish.
I was say they make you hear. Spanish makes so much more sense than English. We should just all speak that instead.
This is from the last time, but your syllabus has it. I just put lesson number because there will be weeks where we'll have to call it off and call an audible. We're going to do the next lesson the next time we meet. Homework today is just to know the alphabet, so that's what we're about to learn. General tips and tricks, though. 15 minutes a day. This is take nothing else about the tips and tricks. 15 minutes a day is the way to do it. You can learn this language if you actually devote 15 minutes a day to studying it and drilling. Language learning is all about repetition and time. And if you space that repetition out over time, you just naturally start remembering it and it becomes second nature. 15 minutes every day, 6 days a week is an hour and a half total. That hour and a half, as if it's spread out over 6 days, is 50 times more valuable than 3 hours of concentrated study. That's just the way language works. Other things, you can sit down and just spend 3 hours doing something and you'll get it done, and that's not how language learning works. You have to space it out and you have to do repetition. So if you actually do just devote 15 minutes every day, you will not have any problems learning this language. It'll be new. It's like working out muscles that you've never used, and so it's awkward, but you will learn. The other thing with that, view Greek study as a form of worship. Make your Greek homework your quiet time. That way, if you do a 15-minute quiet time every day, I don't, but lots of people do, you already have the 15 minutes. This is your quiet time now. You're learning something with the purpose of growing closer to God as a result. And God's not going to hold it against you if you spend a year not reading the Bible but learning how to read the Bible in its original language. So definitely view this study as an act of worship, as a means of growing closer to God, and it'll be more life-giving, more sweet as a result. Another tip: take notes in class by hand. If you force your fingers to write it down, for most people that makes it stick better. Do not fear the fog. So this is, I think Mounce actually even mentions it. The fog refers to every week you're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing, and you're going to feel totally lost while we're going over this material. And you're going to get discouraged and depressed. And that's going to follow you every week. But as you look at the weeks behind you, they're going to become really clear. Week three, you're going to be just kind of freaking out. It's not going to make any sense. But you're going to look back at week 1 and 2 and be like, oh, I know those though. Okay. Week 6, it's going to be the same thing, and you're going to be looking back on week 3 like, oh, that was easy. I remember freaking out about that. But it's the fog. The fog moves with you. You feel like you can't even see your hand in front of your face. Don't fear the fog. Just learn to live in the fog. It'll move with you as you move through the language. And when you get to the other side, you can read the language and the fog is clear. And it's great. Anki is a nice little resource. I think they have an app, but the desktop application is what I like. It's a flashcard application, so you can make your flashcards the way you want to. You can change backgrounds, change groupings, and really handy little free application. Definitely recommend it. If you're more of when you're trying to learn vocabulary words and the physical flashcards kind of person, something that I did that helped a lot was color-coded flashcards. I put all my nouns on yellow cards, and I put all my verbs on purple cards, and I put all my adjectives on green cards. And I put I think red cards were all grammar. So color-coded flashcards, when I saw a word, I recognized, I remembered the background that it was on, and that helped me just kind of internalize, oh, that's a noun, I know that.
They have a thing of flashcards.
Yeah.
That you can order. I didn't want to order them unless you suggested them.
Yeah, so it's
someone also
totally up to
you
you.
Write it yourself because it makes it better to write it.
If you make your own flashcards, you can customize them a little bit more, and you're forcing yourself to write the words, and so you remember it a little bit better. That's a lot more time consuming. I did have a lot of friends who bought those, and they said they were really useful.
Okay.
And cut the process down. So yeah, and they're already organized by chapter and everything.
Oh, wow.
So you can just pull out chapter 1 and go through them.
I'll just highlight them if I want them color-coded.
Yeah. The other thing, BillMounce.com, he's the one who wrote the material. He's got a lot of extra helps and material online to go along with the grammar and the workbook. Most of the stuff he puts out is pretty good. So if you see something you think it looks like it might be helpful, and you feel like spending the money, it probably is, and it's probably worth the money. Always feel free to ask, and I'll let you know if I think it's worth it. I tend to be an old school guy as far as learning stuff. I want to do it as cheaply as possible and do as much of it myself as possible, so that it forces me to learn it better. But I definitely don't fault the guys who want the extra helps. All those general tips and tricks make sense? Yeah. Vocabulary for the day. So there'll be more vocabulary here at the beginning and less as we move on through, but lexicon is the first vocabulary word. Lexicon is just a fancy scholarly word for dictionary. That's all it means. So when we talk about a Greek lexicon, that's BDAG, that book, it's a Greek dictionary. It tells you the English, it gives you the definition of the word in English words. We're talking about the lexical form. We're talking about the form of the word that appears in the dictionary. So Greek is what's called an inflected language. It changes an ending or changes the spelling to communicate a slightly different idea. And English is the same way. If we have the word jump, but we want to put it in the past tense, we say, anybody? Jumped, right? But if you want to know the definition of the word jumped,
You look under jump.
you look under jump, right? There are some words that change at the beginning in English, but not many. Greek, the words change at both the beginning and the end when they're doing that. So the lexical form of a Greek word is very important to know. That's the one you're going to be memorizing in your vocabulary list, and that's the one you have to look up. So sometimes you'll run across a word, and there's like 6 letters on the front of it that you have to recognize that's not part of the word. And to find it in the dictionary, you got to know what the root of that word is, and that happens naturally over time. So if you ever hear me refer to the lexical form, that's what I'm talking about, the form that appears in the dictionary. Koine. Koine is the kind of Greek that we're learning. It's the 1st century common tongue. Okay?
Sounds Greek to me.
I know, right? Yeah, you're also going to hear that joke about 70 billion times, so just get used to it. Koine is the kind of Greek that we're learning. It's the 1st century common tongue. Koine literally means common. That's why it's called that.
Is Koine, biblical, and ancient all the same word? Different words
Koine
for
and
the same-
biblical are the same thing. Usually when you're saying ancient Greek, you're talking about what's called Attic Greek, which is 4th century BC Greek, which is different.
And there's no real use for that other than just an old dead language.
Yeah, if you're reading Plato, Aristotle,
Yeah.
any of the philosophers from that time,
Okay.
you're reading Attic. If you're studying the classics in university, then you're learning Attic Greek most likely.
Do you know what changed from Attic to Koine and what Koine to modern?
Yeah, roughly. So Attic is a little bit more complex than Koine, and there are a couple of letters in the alphabet that exist in Attic Greek that just fell out of use by the time the Koine period came around. Koine is just a little bit simpler grammar. It's the street language, so it's the high-minded elites were using Attic in the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC, and then as it became broader and more people started speaking Greek, the commoners started speaking a simpler, dumbed-down version that became Koine, what we call Koine.
And what's the difference between that and the modern? Do you know?
It's pronunciation mostly.
Really?
Again, language changes over time. If you think of it, the analogy that I've always been told, it's from Koine Greek to modern Greek is kind of like Old English to modern English. And when I say Old English, I'm talking Chaucer, Canterbury Tales.
Yeah.
The stuff that almost doesn't even sound like English when you're reading it. Somewhere between Chaucer and Beowulf. Right?
So if I spoke to my dad, it might just sound like I'm just kind of saying things incorrectly.
No, well, yeah, it might sound like you're saying things incorrectly. It would be almost incoherent. Like he
Okay.
might catch a word here and there, but the grammar would be completely different. The pronunciation would be completely different. It'd be like speaking really, really bad Spanglish.
Oh, that's how I get by at work every day. So I'm in construction.
Yeah, so that you'd be able to throw out some words, and he'd be able to understand you with a thick accent. Hebrew is different. Hebrew is more like Shakespearean English to modern English.
Oh.
So, biblical Hebrew, if you learn that, you can go and communicate pretty effectively with people in Israel. It's just they're just going to think that you're weird and using old language, saying thee and thou, basically. Transliteration. Transliteration is putting the Greek sounds into English letters. So if we say Greek word you guys probably already know, agape, right? So this is the Greek word. Right. Agape, the way you transliterate that would be agape. right? You're making the sounds in English letters.
Okay.
The way you translate that is, anybody? Love.
Oh.
So translation is actually changing it from the old language to the new language. You're getting the meaning across. Transliteration is you're getting the sound across, the letters.
Is agape the correct pronunciation?
Depending on where the accent is, it might be agape.
Well, that's what I heard someone say. I tried to do a YouTube video of it last week
Okay.
of learn to speak Greek, and they're like, say A like the Greek, and then they're like agape or something. And I was like, crap. I'm done.
Yeah, we'll learn this as we go. It's not super important, but the accent will change based on how it's being used in a sentence. So that's much later.
Will you go back one?
You have it on, but you're taking notes to remember it better.
My grammar skills are not up to speed. And you said participle, I went, oh man, I haven't heard that word since 12th grade. But actually really probably like the 9th or 10th grade.
Yeah. Participles are ing words. Running, jumping, sitting. Verbal nouns. We'll get to that. That's at the very end. Alright, we're good. Alphabet. So now we're going to learn the alphabet. So this is going to be like third grade. It's going to be repeat after me. I'm going to say it, and you're going to say it. And then we're going to kind of go through one letter at a time and sound it out. So I'm going to circle it and say it, and you repeat it. Alpha.
Alpha.
Beta.
Beta.
Gamma.
Gamma.
Delta.
Delta.
Epsilon.
Epsilon.
Zeta.
Zeta.
Eta.
Eta.
Theta.
Theta.
Iota.
Iota.
Kappa.
Kappa.
Lambda.
Lambda.
Mu.
Mu.
Nu.
Nu.
Xi.
Xi.
Omicron.
Omicron.
Pi.
P.
Rho.
Rho.
Sigma.
Sigma.
Tau.
Tau.
Upsilon.
Upsilon.
Phi.
Phi.
Chi.
Chi.
Psi.
Psi.
Omega.
Omega.
So it's not pi, it's p.
It's not pi.
I was like, he said it wrong.
Yeah, so this is where usually in our Greek classes, all of the people who are in sororities and fraternities go, what? Yeah. They've been saying it wrong.
Or anyone who took math.
Yeah. Anyone who math. Some stuff to notice. So sigma, you saw that there's all of the others have 2 letters and this one has 3. That's because this is what's called a final form. When a sigma is at the end of the word, it looks like that. When it's in the middle of the word, it looks like that. And that'll become completely second nature after 1 week. But for now, it's going to be really weird. Sigma looks like an S, except for when it's in the middle of the word, when it looks like an O with a tail on it. The best way to think about this is lots of people when they're learning this, they think in terms of English equivalents. They think, oh, beta is the one that looks like a B. That one works out just fine. But rho,
Yeah, it really threw me off.
rho makes an R sound and it looks like a P. So instead of thinking of these as letters, think of them as shapes with a sound associated. Do your best to try and think. Don't think anything, like try to train your brain to when you see that shape, you just go, rrr. You don't even say rho, right? When you see that shape, you go, because that's a noon. Or excuse me, that's a nu.
New.
And it looks like a V, right, in English, but it's a nu. So if you can train your brain to hear a sound when you see that shape, instead of trying to think in terms of equivalence and how it's similar to the English alphabet, you'll get to where you're reading it a lot faster. The other Oh, we'll get to that at the end. So we're going to go through one letter one by one. We're going to talk about the sound that they make, how you sound them out in a word. So alpha makes an ah sound as in father. Everybody say it, father.
Father.
Yeah. Every time you see alpha, I want you to go ah.
Ah.
Yeah. Not ah.
Oh.
Ah. So agape.
So long A.
Yes, long A. Man, I need to get new markers. Put that word back up. Agape. Not agape. There's lots of people do. Or agape. It's just awful. Beta, that one's simple. B. Like Bible. Hard B sound. Always. Gamma. G. Hard G sound, like in gone. Or GIF. Delta, D, hard D sound as in dog. So these ones, really simple. They look like the English equivalent for the most part, and they sound like the English equivalent. So, but still, try and think of it as that's a G. It looks more like a Y, right? So,
Going for a run.
you know what?
What's the is the uppercase and lowercase the same as we use it?
Yes. Well, roughly. So, yeah, I want you to learn both the uppercase and the lowercase. The uppercase is pretty infrequent.
Okay.
Uppercase letters don't start sentences in Greek. It's all lowercase. Sometimes they're not even used in proper names,
Okay.
but sometimes they are. So, like Jesus, Jesus, it'll almost always be. You'll always see it with Jesus. Might have misspelled that, but might not be an alpha in there. It'll always have that uppercase at the start of it. Otherwise, you won't see uppercase letters except in names. But it's still good to be familiar with them because when I start showing you some manuscripts often have uppercase letters or they're written in all uppercase letters. So it's good to be familiar with them so it's an easier transition to looking at manuscript evidence. That's all. Epsilon, as in met or elephant. Again, that one's pretty easy. Zeta. That one's harder to write. It takes a little while to get used to the little tiny swirl at the top and the big swirl. Oh, and I was gonna be writing these so that you see the kind of the handwriting version as opposed to the alpha, beta, gamma, delta. So you can tell what's important in the letter. Those ones are all pretty straightforward. Epsilon, it's like a capital E. You can put a little loop in there. You can. You'll also sometimes see it like this, with a straight line in between. So either of those works. Zeta. You don't have to do the loop at the top. You can just do that. It is nice. It clarifies if you put the little loop at the top.
To differentiate it from
Xi.
C.
Yeah.
I was
Which else?
thinking it was gonna be like a. If it's at the end of the word, it'd be like sigma.
Oh yeah.
It looks just like Sigma.
Yeah, if you don't do the loop.
Yeah.
So
You'll
definitely at the end of the
You'll
word.
never see a zeta at the end of a word.
Oh.
That's how you know.
Huh?
I'm trying to think if there's ever a case where zeta would be at the end of a word. Maybe in some Hebrew names that you're transliterating into Greek from Hebrew. But
So
that's
maybe
it.
in
Yeah.
the Septuagint.
Des Brown.
Eta looks like an H or it really looks like an N, a lowercase n with a long tail. The long tail is important, so make sure that that's hanging down below the line. Your right line. Theta, there's a couple different ways to write theta. I always just do that. You can try and do it in one motion. A lot of people do that when they're learning to write it faster. But
That
Theta's
would drive
pretty
me
easy.
crazy.
yeah, that one is clearer to me. And it makes a th sound. So there's 4 letters. that make in English, they make two sounds together. So theta is one of them. Everybody good on these? Iota, really easy, right? Looks like an I, sounds like an I. E, as in intrigue. And in Greek, the iota often ends up sounding like a short I, but try your best to keep it E, like a long E sound. That'll help way down the line when we get to some assimilations. But sometimes it'll sound like, sometimes you can pronounce it like the I and in. But for the most part, try and keep it iota.
Wait, I say intrigue. Is that like those are two different pronunciations of I in that word to me? Am I saying it incorrectly?
No, that's correct. So that's the I was referring to. It was
okay.
Intrigue.
I thought you said intrigue, and I was like, no, that's how you say that word.
My fault. Yeah, and that's why Mounce chose this word as the example one, because sometimes it sounds like that, sometimes it sounds like that, but try and always make it sound like that one.
Oh, gotcha. Because he has them both on one.
Yeah. Kappa, K, as in kitchen, hard K sound. Looks just like a K in English, actually.
A small capital.
A small capital K.
Mm-hmm.
Lambda. That one's in math too, right? L, as in law.
Let's see. Alpha, beta, delta.
Alpha, beta,
I think gamma might be.
gamma. Basically, all of them are used if you get far enough in math.
Yeah. Theta.
Epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu. Mu looks like that. I think of it as a cursive U when I'm trying to write it. But
Do you need to drop the first part?
yeah, you gotta have both of those. You need that long thing at the beginning, and you need the clear one at the end.
Ma.
M, as in mother, we use. New, as in new. Looks like a V. That trips a lot of people up when you start reading it. So like I said, you can associate that shape with the sound N. It'll really help you out. Xi, this is the one that can get confused with. So Xi, it's like, just do your best to write it. Mine doesn't look very good, but if you're trying to get both of those little loops up at the top, and then
It looks like how the
It's
Muslims.
a zeta with the extra.
yes,
Oh, yeah, nice.
zeta with an extra flare.
It looks like the symbol for Allah. And
Oh yeah, you see on those flags?
yeah,
Yeah.
my wife has that tattoo. Back when she was lost, she thought it was a symbol for some sort of like nama. She was really into yoga, and so she thought that's what that was. And the first time I saw it, I went, "Oh, you have a sign for Allah on your rib cage." She was like, "No, it's like a yoga thing," and I was like, "No, that's like what my thoughts are. Is what Daniel saw in his vision for the sign of the beast, and you have it on you right here." Because what I think he saw was like in the name of Allah, you will conquer with the swords and all that, and
I've never heard that one. But yeah, that one.
funny.
So, Xi is one of the less common letters, just like X is a less common letter in English. But you still need to know it, just like you need to know what the letter X is in English. Omicron, ah,
Oh,
as in not. Sounds almost exactly like alpha, ah, ah. Slight differences. Ah. But, yeah. Pronounce them the same way, it'll be fine. Not O. Because O is the last letter, omega.
yeah.
So, Omicron, O. So, another word that you might know from Greek already. logos, not logos. Jesus was in the beginning was the logos, and the logos was with God, and the logos was God, but not the logos. There's a Bible software called Logos, even though the company pronounces it Logos.
They're wrong.
They're wrong about their own name. P. Most people already know how that one sounds because of math,
Even though they say it wrong.
even though they say it wrong. But you're going to get that confused with rho all the time. You're going to be pronouncing rho like a P for a while, and you just got to get through that. So, like I said, as soon as you can, start thinking of that shape as the sound. P. It'll help you out. Followed up by rho. Actually, I shouldn't have done that.
It's a raw.
Rho,
Raw.
as in rod. Sigma. That's one way to write it. You can also write it like this. And then the final form is pretty easy. It's just an S.
It's a zeta without the flare at the top.
Yeah, and it's shorter. So
Yeah.
if you think of the middle line and the base line, and here, the middle line and the base line.
I was gonna say, I wonder if they have these.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be homework.
That's-
It's writing out the alphabet.
Pre-K. That's awesome.
Tau, that one's easy. Looks like a T, right? Upsilon, easy. Looks like a U. Phi, this is how I write it. A lot of people write it like this. So you can do either. Chi,
Wait, your fee looks like the uppercase. It doesn't matter.
it does not matter. Yeah, lowercase can be written that way. It's just smaller, obviously. I'm gonna erase these so that I got room to finish out. So phi, chi. Try and give it that. There's not as much phlegm in Greek as there is in Hebrew, but there's a little bit whenever you see a chi, loch, right? You can also just pronounce this with a hard CK, like as in character, right? CH, I mean, but it's more fun to put the phlegm in. So if you can pronounce it like that, psi. Try and keep the p in there, psi.
Psi.
Written like that, and then omega, last one.
Looks like a W.
Looks like a little W, yeah. And you probably recognize the uppercase omega because so many people use it in logos for things. This is the Greek alphabet.
C is another one that they mispronounce.
Psi, yeah. They pronounce it psi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that you probably already recognize the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end, the first and last letters of the alphabet. You might have already learned that before, but yeah, that's how it works. Everybody feel kind of comfortable in this? Let's go through and say it again. Alpha,
Alpha,
beta,
Okay.
gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. If you go online, you can find people who've made songs for this. Just like there's a song for the English alphabet, there are songs for the Greek alphabet. I found it best to just alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta. Up to you. Just figure out some sort of mnemonic device to get it. Now I've just got to where I get alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau. Like you get to where you can just rattle it off. That's best. Same way you can with the English alphabet, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Particularly if you can get to where you can just rattle it off. It's helpful when you're looking up words in the lexicon. So you don't have to sit here and go alpha, beta, gamma, delta to find the letter you're looking for. You can think alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, okay, kappa. Okay, that's before iota, after lambda, or vice versa. But everybody tracking.
Why are there words instead of just letters?
One more time.
Why are there why is it omega
Oh,
instead of just O?
yeah, I don't know. I like that there are because it's helpful in remembering the sound that it makes, particularly the ones that have multiple letter sounds. But I don't know. I know some. Back that up. I do know why some of them. So like, omega is actually a compound word. Omicron, mega meaning big, long O, whereas omicron, o, micron, small. So small o, big O. That's what the two words omega and omicron mean. So there's something like that in some of these letters, but I don't know the thing behind all of them.
Not important.
Yeah. Tricky letters, things that'll often trip you up as you're learning how to read it. The eta, the capital looks like an H, but eta is a vowel. It makes an A sound, the long A sound, or the long EY sound, like the word hay. It's the A, always makes that sound, but it looks like an H or an N. But you got to remember vowel. Anything it's making a vowel sound, not a consonant sound. Mu, lowercase, looks like a letter U, but mu is a consonant. So opposite problem, right? You see that, and because you read English, you're gonna think a vowel sound, but you need to be thinking of your lips are closing, making a consonant sound. And eta, you're gonna be thinking a consonant sound because it looks kind of like an N or an H. And you need to be thinking lips, mouth open for a vowel sound. Nu looks like a V, obviously. P and rho, that's the biggest one that everybody gets tripped up with for a while. Just pronouncing rho like a p, and it's not. He obviously looks like an X, but x is the sound that xi makes, so that one trips people up for a while. And then omega obviously looks like a W, and it makes an O sound. Those are the ones to really drill as you're practicing this week. Be drilling those letters in particular. Write them, look at the shape, try and clear your mind of anything like English, and just see the shape and make a sound. N, that one, N. When you see that, you go R, and you feel like a little 3-year-old learning how to sound out words again, because that's where we're learning how to sound out words. That's okay. Treat yourself like a 3-year-old while you're learning this language. Little 3-year-old boys are learning Greek in Greece. They can do it, so can you. Vowels are very similar to English as far as the sounds that they make, but along with a, e, I, o, u, we had a and o. So a, o. There's 7 vowels? Yeah. And then obviously the double letters. So and ps. 4 letters that make 2 letter sounds in English, but in Greek it's just 1 letter. It makes the whole sound. And this is going to become important as we come down the way. You recognize it's pretty easy to recognize what letters make up those sounds, but ps, ps. If you're going to pick 2 letters from the Greek alphabet, if those 2 letters have to combine and make this letter, what 2 letters are they going to be?
Something in sigma.
Something in sigma. Which one?
P in sigma.
P in sigma. Yeah. So ps. Same with if you're looking at phi. That one's gonna be harder to figure out. Yeah, don't worry about that. What about C?
Do you have that cheat sheet?
Which cheat sheet?
C.
I'm missing one. That's what the problem is.
You're missing one?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be five.
I don't know which letter it is. Come on, where are you? There you are. J. C, technically, is like a kappa and a sigma. So when a kappa and a sigma come up against each other in Greek, usually they turn into a xi. We'll get to that. That'll make sense as you start reading. That's it. That's the alphabet. That's all we're learning today. Homework is to know the alphabet, know every letter, uppercase and lowercase, and what sound it makes. Next week we'll start actually sounding out words and reading some
Like
Greek
memorize
passages.
the whole alphabet?
So yeah, you need to know this like the back of your hand, or maybe like something that you know better than the back of your hand, because sometimes I get caught off guard when
What's that?
yeah. You, hopefully when you come in next week, I just show you this letter and you go row. I show you this and you go p. That's gonna make it a whole lot easier to sound out words and do things.
It's gonna take me a little bit to train myself not to say pie
Pie,
and
right.
sigh.
So yeah, the ones that are gonna when you're sounding out words, it's gonna take a while to train yourself not to go oh when you see that. It's ah, ah, ooh, ah. So let's go through the alphabet one more time, and we'll have questions and we'll be done. Say it with me. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Chi. Questions, worries, concerns? See, this is going to be easy. It's going to be no problem. I bet I could even start, you could probably start pronouncing some words if I threw some up here. Think of, so I'm gonna erase this. Since we have an extra 5 minutes. Might as well get a head start on pronunciation. That's a tough one. What's it say? Sound it out.
Out to serve.
Pater?
Yeah. Pater.
Pater?
Pater. Father.
Oh, father.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like the patriarchy. These come from Greek words. I'll be saying that a lot, just FYI. If you haven't seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding with Mr. Portakalis, who tells you how the root of every word is Greek.
That was literally my conversation with my dad on the way here.
Yeah.
Make sure they know that we're the reason why we started worshiping Jesus and not golden calves.
Exactly. So yeah, I will often be saying these come from Greek words. Let's give you another one.
Wait, the word before row, the letter before row is what?
Epsilon.
Oh, I thought that was sigma. No, because sigma.
Sigma's the O with the visor.
Yeah. Can I see your grammar actually? Let me just flip
This
through.
thing?
No, find some vocab words to pronounce. Oh yeah, let's do that one. That's a fun word.
You're like halfway through the book, bro.
Yeah, but we're just sounding out the words, so.
Is that a gamma at the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sound it out with me. G,
G.
I,
Mm.
N,
Nu.
Oh.
O,
O. Sigma. K.
O. Gnosko.
Gnosko.
Gnosko means I know.
Gnosko.
Gnosko.
Trying to find ones that might trip you up with. Yeah. Okay. Brad, you go for this one. You sound it out.
Artos.
Artos.
Artas.
Yeah. Nice. That means bread, in case you're wondering. Ooh, yeah. That's a good one. Andrew. I'm a terrible speller. So I always have to look up spelling.
Chronos? No. Chronos?
Yeah, Kronos.
Chronos.
Yeah.
Kronos.
Can I take a guess at what it means?
Chronos.
Kronos. Remember
Time.
how this translates? Yeah, time. There you go. Like chronological.
Ah, yes.
I literally just went, what is he going to say?
Yeah.
Think of the Greek word.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. Alright, I'll do this last one and then we'll be done. This is what we're going to be doing next week is pronunciation. Learning how to catch the hard parts of pronunciation.
I can't believe you can do this without a cheat sheet. I'm literally sitting here with...
I'm just trying to remember the pronunciation of each letter. Let's see.
Didasco, nice. Means I teach. Think of the word didactic. Your didactic method. Didasco.
What does disciple and discipler mean, since you've studied this so much, in your opinion?
Disciple and discipler both come from Latin roots.
Okay.
Mean to learn or learner. So a disciple is one who learns. A discipler
What is the Greek word that they translate? Disciple?
matheteo.
Matheteo?
Usually it means something more like witness. I only have to brush up on my actual vocab words. I'm so used to just reading it that sometimes I have to stop and think. Here's the Greek word for that English word. I always go the other way. And there should be a dictionary at the back. Yes, there is. So when you're looking at, when you see a Greek word at the back of your grammar, there's a dictionary of all the words that he uses in the grammar. And I think all the words that he uses in the workbook as well are in this. Mathetes. Matheteo would be to disciple. Or I disciple. Alright. Next week, make sure you know the alphabet.